The Path to Authenticity is brought to you by GIA Miami. Founded by world-class mental health experts, GIA provides advanced care for difficult-to-treat conditions, including anxiety, medication-resistant depression, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Using state-of-the-art methods, GIA can help people recover from conditions when more traditional approaches can't. Dr. Antonello Bonci has assembled an expert team serving international clientele in a modern and resplendent Miami setting. If you or someone you love is suffering from depression, anxiety, OCD, or other mental health concerns, call GIA at 833-713-0828. You can learn more about GIA by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting giamiami.com.
Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
My name is Jenna Malyon, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
If this is your first time here, thanks for checking it out. If not, thanks for coming back. I'm Tom Gentry, and this is The Path to Authenticity, episode 172 for April 26th, 2022. Got some really good stuff coming up. Have an author and book coach who I'm going to be interviewing this week. Going to do another conversation with Coach Jill Lane, who's a lot of fun. And happy to share this new episode with Jenna, who has become a very good friend over the last year. Great personality and a relatively new entrepreneur. So hope you enjoy it. Here you go. Jenna Malyon. Jenna, thank you for doing this. It's great to have you here. Makes me happy. It's 8:00 on a Wednesday evening, and I've had a lot to do today. It's been kind of a long day, and if it was anybody else, I probably wouldn't want to do this, but it's not anybody else. It's you. So I'm happy and excited to be here. And, I'm really just knowing you. We met on Clubhouse in the mutual support world. I'll let you further characterize it if you would like to. And so I've gotten to know you a little bit. And I'd say you're the best friend I've made on Clubhouse, for sure. And it just has made me really proud of you and happy for you to watch you go through this life transition, professional transition that you've gone through over the last year. And, what you have done is really what this podcast is all about. And so I wanted you to come on and talk about what you're doing for a living and how you came to do it.
So many nice things. I just want to say that, like, I'm just receiving it all. I'm really grateful for the friendship that we formed on Clubhouse. But yeah, no, what I'm doing, like, I don't even know where to start.
Well, maybe start how you had a job that you were unhappy in.
Yes, yes, yes. So, if anyone has ever worked for family, they would understand. But yeah, I went to school, I got my BA, I did my master's. And when I did that, I still really, I got through it and I wasn't happy with that. So I always had like my dad's business to fall back on. I worked there for a good part of my life. It probably adds up to 10 years or so. It's just the thing is when I chose to get sober and live an alcohol-free life, I think that's when my toxic work environment became even more noticeable in the sense that it didn't matter how much I was doing for my personal bank, as in like all the spiritual things that you can. I was always depleted. And I think it just got to a point where, I'm starting, like, when you look, like, I'm starting to advocate for myself in a way that I don't think I ever have. And going to work every day where people walk over those boundaries, and do nothing about it. It's not talked about. It's just like the norm. I think that's the hardest thing that, for me. So yeah, with that, one weekend, my brother and so I worked for my dad's construction business. He's been in business for about 45 years, very successful. Just to give you an idea, right now, he has about 120 employees. So it's large scale. But yeah, in November 5th, it was a weekend. And it's like the last fight with my brother, It was always like I was never working hard enough. I was never at work, even though I was breaking my back to make, and taking pride in our name, right? So yeah, one weekend I just said, you know what? I'm not doing it anymore. I always wanted to run a daycare. I mean, if you would have told me that I'd be running one, I wouldn't believe you, but I am. Took a lot of hard work and dedication. And I'm here. I made it.
So you're not just running a daycare, you started a small business.
I did start a small business, registered and all.
And talk about what you did to your house.
Yeah, so I've been living in the place. I bought my place about 8 years ago. It's so funny because I've been doing laundry on like concrete floors for like 8 years until I just finished my basement recently for my new daycare. But I had to start off at like waterproofing, and I did that from the interior, and I tried to do most of the work myself. So yeah, I got fit for Christmas and hauled lots of concrete, and yeah, I did hire out like the drywall and all stuff like that, but I had to finish my basement to start my business. And mind you, though, thinking of it, now my entire house is basically a daycare.
Yeah, that's what I've gathered. It's a lifestyle.
It is. It really is. But it's beautiful.
Yeah. You post, little video snippets every day and photos, and you look really, really happy. So one question I have for you is, even though it was your family and those circumstances and having to deal with that, the boundary issues and all that stuff, what if it was something you were doing that you really loved to do? Would it have made a difference, do you think?
I don't think so, because I really did love what I did. Like, my job at Malyon's, like I loved it. I was an estimator, and I did also do work in the office, like in off seasons. But yeah, I was an estimator for all kinds of construction jobs. So I was the person that would go. I was like the face of the company, right? So I would go out and meet all these people that called for jobs. And in that experience, you get to meet. That is one thing I loved about that job is all the amazing people you got to meet in the process. Very inspiring people.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you love about what you're doing now?
So many things. I love that I work out of my home. I love that I get paid to spend time with children that are such beautiful beings. I'm not gonna lie, like the first couple weeks, I spent a lot of time crying. Tom knows this. It's better to cry with someone, right? But yeah, it's just I love everything about it. I love being my own boss.
So talk about how it feels, how you feel now compared to the way you felt then day to day and how it's affected you like energetically.
I feel like a weight has been lifted completely, like in the sense of like the toxicity. I really don't have to be around toxic anymore because the people that I choose to have in my life aren't toxic. Um, and how does it make me feel? I think I have to talk about like there's still a certain amount of fear involved, right? Because like I'm still not where I want to be at,
Hmm.
you know? There's always room for growth.
Right.
And there's still like that you have to think of finances, you know? Single woman.
Mm-hmm.
Life is expensive.
Yeah, life is expensive. But I don't know. For me, having gone through a less dramatic but similar transition over time, the struggle is worth it because I'm spending my time for the most part the way I want to be spending my time. And quality of life, like my whole life feels better than it did when I was basically punching a clock, right? It just feels
Punching a
better.
clock.
Yeah.
That's quite the term. No, it's true. It's true. Like for me, it's like it was the dread of like having to get up for the job I couldn't stand. Like, and for me, the aspect of the job I couldn't stand is really my family, you know?
Yeah.
If I didn't have to deal with them, it's okay. But now it's great. I really love it.
Well, and it's I think in any close relationships, family relationships, or if you're married or whatever, you have that part of life. But then if you work together and we need space from each other, right? So when, they've watched you your whole entire life, you've grown up with them and you're that close with all them and you work together every day. I mean, that's a lot, right? Like sometimes I wonder, I think it takes like a special sort of married couple who can actually work together and not completely drive each other crazy. Right. But that just that is a struggle, like to have someone who's in like too many parts of our life all at once. Right.
I mean, I think coming from a dysfunctional family, we were never the type of family, like, it's funny to even say that because, like, dysfunctional, yet we all still work together. But we were never the close type, you know? Like, I mean, we got together for occasions and stuff, but it's like I don't call my brother on a Friday night to hang out.
Yeah.
I mean, there is like an age gap. Like, my older brothers are, you know, there's maybe like, what, 7 years between us. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, you're the youngest,
I
right?
know.
I'm the
Yeah.
youngest. And, I mean, I still get, oh, you're the baby. I
Right?
mean, I get that all the time still, you know, and I'm not a baby.
And I'm the only girl.
Yeah, there's that. But, you know, one of the things, even working in more like corporate type settings over the years, one of the things that I witnessed and experienced was, you know, like my first really solid job with a big company. You know, when I started, I was like 24, 25 years old, and it was an entry level job, and I ascended, you know, in the company. I got better jobs, but there was this sense that, they still saw me as the kid who came in the entry level job, and they would only take me so seriously. And at some point, in order to continue to grow, I had to leave the nest. Right. And I've seen it with other guys since then in my career where, you know, they were great employees and big producers and everything, but, you know, they wouldn't make as much as they deserved because people saw them as small. And so then they had to leave. And then immediately, you know, they'd go somewhere else and they'd be recognized for as good as they were. But if they stayed in the nest, they might have never gotten there, you know? So there's probably some of that to this too, right? Because it's your family, maybe they didn't take you as seriously.
Yeah. I think when it comes to my family, like, they looked at me like the type of person that was always like fly by night and never had my shit together. I mean, still to this day, because my brothers all like, they all got married quite young and had kids. And I'm still like single, never been married, don't have kids. So to them, it's like strange, you know, and they think like, I don't know, they think it's me, and I don't think it's me. Um, but yeah, I think that like the nest thing for sure. It feels good. Like, they're always going to see you a certain way, and
Right.
that's fine. But I also feel like by leaving, it has also improved our relationship in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. You've talked to me about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, being the youngest has its whole set of issues that it comes with, right?
I think it's funny because, like, you don't really ever take the time to stop and think about those things. I mean, at least I haven't till recently.
What things?
Like birth order, and also the impact of family dysfunction.
Hmm. So when did you really start to pay attention to that?
I would say, like, in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what opened your eyes?
Sobriety.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And thanks to sobriety, I met you, right?
Yeah. Thanks to sobriety, you've met a lot of people.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what's in the future? What do you want?
Ideally, I want to manage a daycare. So I want to have like a large scale daycare center where I would oversee the work and manage.
So do you want it to be someone else's or do you want it to be yours?
No, I want it to be mine. But instead of changing diapers, I would be doing just the finances and like managing it.
Yeah. It's funny. Something I was thinking about recently is it's like you're kind of always changing diapers. They're just not all literally diapers, right? But as people grow and you're managing them, leading them, or whatever, it's just like it's a different kind of diaper changing.
Wow, that's
Right.
quite the analogy.
It's true. It's true.
But it does put things into perspective, yes.
Yeah.
Make sure you give it a good wipe, eh?
Yeah. But okay, so you want to have a big daycare.
Yeah. So like my next step is to actually get licensed in Ontario.
So what's the difference between that and where you are now?
So where I am right now without my license, I cannot hire anyone to work under me.
Okay.
And it limits how many children you could have.
So how many can you and how many do you at this point?
At this point, I have 3 full-time.
Okay.
And I could have 5. I mean, I could fill my spots. But what happened is I had some start and then I had to make changes. So it was like starting over because these kids together, it's really important that there's like routine and like, I don't know, that they know each other. And so like, I'm just at the point like right now where I'm ready to add a couple more. Takes time.
One of the things about creating a business, first of all, I mean, I know you've experienced that it really is a creative endeavor, right? It just starts out as an idea and then it just kind of takes life. And there are all these little decisions that you make that determine what that life is like. It's really cool.
I think when I was really discouraged one night, you gave me the best advice, like how you have to treat it like a living entity, and how there's going to be changes and there's, it's a learning experience every day.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's critical, if you really want something great, if you want to create something great, it has to be alive and you have to be able to adapt and do better. And, I don't know. I was at a place in my career 15 years ago where I was running a business for somebody else and, she had the money, I had the expertise. And, it was always like, we should have a policy for this. We should, everything was, she always had this attitude of this should be finished. This should be finished. And, I knew that there was no explaining to her that, there is no finish line with this. She complained all the time that we didn't have this or we didn't have that, but it was a great place. And it was always getting better. And it was very highly regarded. And, it was, people loved it, and I don't know. I think recovery gives us skills like that too. To be able to just kind of learn how to go with the flow and not be all uptight and wound tight, That's one of the things I really love about sobriety is that it's given me some patience and, patience, I guess. And just the ability to let go and relax and wear life like a loose garment,
A loose garment. I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for me, the thing about like the finish, there definitely is no finish. And I think For me, a lot of it was, I wanted to get everything done right away. And like, still to this day, I want everything right now. And that just doesn't happen. And, I think back to the whole journey and I think how much work and like dedication, like you really do have to put a lot of work into something if you want it to like come into fruition. So yeah, and I think really patience, that's like a skill that I've been practicing my entire life. And I want to say that at almost 2 years sober, I think I can say that, I'm getting better at patience. And I could go to bed at night if I don't get everything done that I intended to get done. I'm not beating myself up about it,
Yeah. Yeah, we can be awful hard on ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Life's hard enough. We don't have to be hard on ourselves.
Yeah, and I think sometimes like you could slip into those dysfunctional like ways of thinking without even really noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
then you catch yourself and you're like, oh my God, Jenna, you're so ungrateful.
Yeah. There you are being hard on yourself for being hard on yourself.
Yeah.
That's,
me.
Yeah. All right. So anything else long term any big ambitions?
Just
what
to be
about the
happy.
clinical stuff? What about the training you've had? Do you not want to do something with that, or do you have a vision for it?
Honestly, I don't really have a vision for it right now. I feel like my experience, I don't know if it came at like a lot of other things in my life, like my addiction, a really bad breakup. I don't know, when I think about practicing therapy as a therapist now, there's a lot of trauma like that I still haven't unpacked yet. But I do think if I did go back and practice, that I would offer a way better version of help than I could have before. Because I do believe, like, I don't see any of it as a waste at all. I do believe that it's really easy to read a bunch, like people read all these books and like, even I'm saying this about myself because, I did read all these books and then I was tossed in, and it's so different than when you're like practicing, it's so much more than the book. And I do think that my experience as a therapist in practice opened me up to a side of myself that I had been tucking away for a very long time.
Well, and there's something about life experience and going through some adversity that it just, it gives you some credibility when you're working with people. And it's like there's weight to what you have to say. It's not just words anymore. When people can tell that what you're talking about is somehow grounded in experience. And I don't think it even has to be the same kind of experience that the person you're working with is going through. It could be something completely different. And I guess the way that the expression I use for it is, if you're in touch with your wounds, then you have this sensitivity to people and their wounds and a kind of compassion that you didn't have before, right? It's just different.
Like one of the biggest challenges for me in there, like when I was in practice, was was getting past the avoidance. You know what I mean? Because to be honest with you, when people come to therapy, the last thing they want to talk about are their wounds, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I feel like now that I've noticed and tended to mine, I notice how that becomes a value, right? Whereas when I was first in practice, like if you would have talked to me about wounds, I was kind of like, I would have, yes, but like I was just in like, I don't know, I think back and it's like it just went over my head, everything in life was just going over my head.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know is that for me, a lot of times in life, especially with my career, but also with relationships, a lot didn't make sense to me in the moment about where I was, what I might have been struggling with, and I didn't have a good point of reference for the trajectory that I was on. But I could also pretty much always look back and see how it all added up and made sense, and how I had to go through what I went through before to get to where I am now. And like for me, a big one that aside from, my active alcoholism, is my divorce. That's something that I promised myself I would never do, especially dragging a kid through it. I mean, it was like, in recovery, we talk about our yets. It was one of those. I was grateful that I didn't go through that while I was drinking, and I really was never going to do it. So it was devastating to go through that. And, just a very, very humbling and painful experience. But I can honestly look back on it with gratitude, because I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't gone through that, because it sort of launched me into a different kind of work on myself and a different kind of awareness, and which created a scenario where I could help other people in ways that I couldn't before. And I wouldn't trade that for anything, I wouldn't. So it all, so you'll figure it out with what you're going to do with your training and experience. And the truth is, you're already using it. You're using it with those kids, and you're using it in your life. That's what I believe. Whether like technically on paper you're using it is another question. But
Yeah, I feel like I'm using it. There's just like less pressure around it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we touched on a lot of stuff, and I told you I wanted to definitely focus on your career stuff and just how proud I am of you for going through all. It takes a lot of courage to do what you did, right? Talk about
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I'm sitting in this spot right now because, I'm there. I did it. And like, it's like that lull after. So I agree. It took a lot of courage and it took a lot of hard work. And yeah, I'm proud of myself. I could say that. I really am proud of
That's
myself.
good.
And I'm really grateful that I had people in my life like you who believed that I could, do it.
Mm. Okay. So looking back on it all of it, if there was a time in your life when you could go back to the younger Jenna and give her a word of support or advice, when did she need it most, and what would you say to her?
Oh my God. Jenna needed advice like early childhood. I don't know. I'm still like, I feel like I still have resentments against Disney movies because like they're all so perfect and then life is nothing close. But yeah, I think it's just that pain has purpose, you know, and that you are the most important asset in your life, yourself. And that Jenna should always put Jenna first.
I love that. Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Another episode in the books. Thanks for listening. You can learn more about the show and this episode's guest at thepathtooauthenticity.com. If you enjoy this episode, please share it with someone. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Every little bit helps. I want to thank the band Punk Rock Opera, whose music you hear throughout the show. Their songs are used with permission from the artist and under a Creative Commons license. If you're so inclined, check out the Patreon community. As soon as I do these interviews, I upload them to Patreon, where the content is only available to patrons, and for just a couple bucks a month. I usually post audio content, their exclusive audio content, probably 8 times a month, if not more. And as these new episodes are released, as soon as they're done, they're available to patrons. So sometimes that might be 2 weeks before an episode is released, or even longer. Usually it's a few days. Anyway, if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do it. So thanks again for investing your time. It's a big deal to me. Thank you for supporting me and supporting the show. I hope you keep coming back. Be nice.
That's our story. I hope you enjoyed the punk rock opera. We have one last piece of music for you. It goes like this.
Okay, go. You cannot make us. We are the GIA Man.
generation of self-made bands. We cut our teeth with bloody hands. The rage has instilled in us. Can feed a crowd, give them a rush. Thank you. And good night.